Are you ready, kids? Aye, Captain. Welcome to the Pittsburgh Hockey Now, National Hockey Now YouTube channel's live postgame show as the Penguins blanketed and beat the New York Islanders 1-0. Hi, I'm Dan Kingerski. No fancy graphics. I apologize. We're still in the home studio, mainly because I kind of actually have liked doing these over the last few weeks, but I'm not going to go into the downtown studios to watch the game and do the show. At least I'm not going to do that by myself. So we are up, we're running, we're live. The Penguins beat the Islanders 1-0. Do me a favor before you head out, like the show, give it a little share as well, and subscribe to the channel. Much appreciate. Like, we've gotten like 150 subscribers a week at this point, and we do appreciate you. Let me share this real quick with everybody, just to let them know that we are in fact live. There are a couple things I want to talk about tonight. Really kind of dive into it. So you know how this works. Put your comments over on the right there on the chat. This is not just me bloviating. This is me and you having a conversation. I'm not sure how much I liked the Penguins game on Friday. There were a lot of things that I liked about it. I think they continue to do the very important things very well. They continue to just jump onto every single puck. I thought that was their big thing over the Islanders for the most part on Friday night. The Penguins were on the loose pucks. Their puck pressure was superb. They created chaos. They created disorganization in the game. And when you're forecheck, and when you can do that in the neutral zone, that only benefits you. But I also thought the Islanders did a bit of that to the Penguins as well. I thought the Penguins were just maybe a little bit, they had to adjust the knobs just a little bit to get into focus with their offensive game. They're still missing that good rebound chance. They're still, or at least a lot of them. I know Crosby had a glorious one about 10 feet out, and Sorokin made a brilliant save. Those are the things I'm struggling with right now. And I say struggling because I'm not sure what value to place on them. I'm not sure if I should say this is a red flag for the Penguins, because they're doing so many things well. They're on these loose pucks. They're creating extended zone time. They're creating all of these offensive chances. And if I jump over to natural stat trick here real quickly. In fact, where'd my window go? I had the window up a second ago. The Penguins outchanced New York pretty significantly in the first period. It was 13-7. And then actually New York, I guess the Penguins outchanced them 16-5 in the second period. New York had a slight edge in the third period, 8-6. So overall, the Penguins had just shy of 64% of the scoring chances. They had 2/3 of the high danger scoring chances. 15-8 is an acceptable number. I'm not going to say 15 high danger chances is great. They had 10 in the second period. But you'd like to see them finish a few of these. You'd like to see them bang home that rebound. You'd like to see Crosby finish the breakaway, Jason Zucker finish the breakaway, Kasperi Kapanen and Evan Rodriguez. You'd like to see just a bit more finish from everybody. In that sense, the Penguins still strike me as a team in transition, where they're still finding things. They're still progressing to their best game. And that's why I don't yet know how much value to assign to a couple of things I didn't like. But I haven't written the report card yet. Usually that's a nice springboard for the live chat. So I'll kind of do that live with you here. And If you don't already subscribe to PHN Plus, certainly appreciate it. And in fact, if you DM me, because you hear me saying this now, DM me on Twitter at the Dan Kingerski. I will send you the special coupon code for the secret PHN Plus yearly subscription, which is $10 off. Cool. So you can go ahead and DM me. That way you can read the report card. You can read the exclusive trade reports and the news with all of our network. The National Hockey Now network. You wouldn't believe the number of GMs we're now plugged into, and the number of organizations we're plugged into, the number of executives league-wide and in the league. We're with everybody working together. We've got ourselves quite the little network, and we've had some great stories, including I think we were pretty much on the forefront of the Jack Eichel story, and that's just a little taste of what you get with PHN Plus. So if I do a live report card here, I need your help just a wee little bit, yeah? Because I don't know how to grade Sidney Crosby on Friday night. I thought he played well. I still saw too many turnovers. That's never in his game. Even when he's scuffling and just having a terrible night, turnovers are not a part of his game, and yet they have been over the last few games. And I feel like he's still pressing. He got one goal. What was that, against Toronto Saturday? Did he score? Forgive me. They all run together a little bit. I think he needs to just break out and go on that run to feel better about himself. I still feel a pressure, a tightness when I see him on the ice. I mean, he got down to one knee and blasted that one-timer tonight. He was 10 feet away, and Sorokin goes over and makes the save, and he had these glorious chances. And it's up to Sid to take those chances and build off them in a positive way. I mean, look, they can go in two directions. You've seen this before. A guy gets a handful of grade A chances and doesn't score. Either he feels good because he's getting these chances and becomes encouraged, or he looks at 5 chances where he could have scored and gets discouraged. I don't know where Sid's mindset is right now. I would probably give him a solid B, and that's on the Crosby curve. That's not on the regular player curve. That's on the Sidney Crosby curve, which is maybe one of the better grades that I would have given him in quite some time. Brian Rust is out. That's probably a good thing. And I don't say that with any macabre factor. I think Brian Rust has been obviously not 100%, and whether it was nagging, whether they tried a treatment and it just didn't improve. He takes a couple laps in warm up and then he's out. Evan Rodriguez does okay on the top line. I don't know who else you'd put there, quite frankly. Maybe you put Kasperi Kapanen up there and you put Rodriguez down with Jeff Carter, or I don't know. But certainly for one game anyway, it was easy to put Erod up on the top line. And by the way, tomorrow morning, 93.7 The Fan will be joining Jim Colony. He and I are the charter members of Erod. We're pretty sure that we forced that name on everybody else. Even if we didn't, we're going to take credit for it. So whenever Evan Rodriguez scores, I know my phone's going to light up with an Erod text from Colony. I'll be on the air with Jimbo on Saturday morning. So if you can, tune into 93.7 The Fan. But I think it's important to get Rust healthy now. Get him healthy now. Don't let this linger and fester, especially with how well the team is playing. I don't think Rust was that big of a factor, quite frankly. And get him healthy. Get him, if nothing else, get him healthy for the incredibly compressed schedule in January and March, when it's just all out Armageddon. You're playing, 4 games a week. Sometimes I think some teams have 5 games, like 2 back-to-backs, and then another in the same week. It's craziness to get enough games in before the Olympic break. And speaking of the Olympic break, do you want to talk about Tristan Jarry and Team Canada? Maybe we have to dive into that a little bit as well. I'll make a little note here to myself on the same night that we're talking about Tristan Jarry perhaps becoming that third goalie. Marc-Andre Fleury, I think, is all but assured to be for Team Canada, right? Maybe Tristan Jarry sneaks in. But on the same night that we're talking about this, Matt Murray is getting waived in Ottawa. Just wow, what a fall. Wheeler asks, hey Wheeler, are you related to Bob and June Wheeler? If you get that reference, I should give you a free subscription. Is Evan Rodriguez a poor man's Brian Rust? If they lose him in the summer as a free agent, is he the leading contender to replace Rust? That's an interesting question. Is he a poor man's Brian Rust? No. I don't think Rodriguez should be playing in the top six. I was having a conversation about this with a colleague. Today is Friday. So Wednesday night after the Vancouver game, we were actually talking about Evan Rodriguez, a writer that most of you like. And I think we both have the same opinion that Rodriguez would be a top six guy on a bad team. On a good team, he should be a third liner. He's actually starting to make a believer of me as a third line center. So if pushes come to shoves and that's necessary, I would not demur from that like I would have before the season. If you'd asked me in August, September, even October, I would have said, no. You don't want Evan Rodriguez as your third line center. But look, all of a sudden, here it is. And he's played quite well. Now, look, this is a 20-game segment. This is not an 82-game segment. There are a lot of players in the history of the NHL who have had great 20-game segments. Who was Mr. October? His name was Brian Savage. Was that his name? Yeah, I think it was Brian Savage. Played for both Montreal and Tampa Bay. And he would destroy the scoring sheet every October. I'm talking 4, 5, 6 goals. And, he's kind of a down-line, borderline player. But every October, he had a handful or more of goals. And everyone's like, all the fantasy players would jump on and pick him up. You'd see his stats go through the roof. And then the calendar would turn to November, and he would score 1 or 2 more goals the rest of the season. This happened several times. There's, we can't anoint Evan Rodriguez yet after 7 years in the league. He's still got a lot to prove. He's shown he can run the sprint now, right? 7 goals in 20 games. I don't think he had an assist on Kapanen's goal. But let's see the next 60 games. And if he does hit that 20-goal mark, then we talk, right? Then we talk about him being a poor man's Brian Rust. But Wheeler, I'm not ready to go there just yet. Owen, my Vegas guy, likes to hop on the Penguins chats. Appreciate you, Owen. What on earth is happening with Matt Murray? I feel bad for the guy. Yeah, I do too. I liked Matt a lot here in Pittsburgh. I mean, I had to be tough on him, but he struck me as actually, one of a guy I'd like to go have a beer with. And that's not because he was, the Jeff Carter kind of good time guy, but because he was at times introspective and intelligent, and he has that layer. Perhaps that's not a good thing for a goalie. Obviously, the last 3 years, counting this season, the last 3 seasons, counting this one, maybe really 4, if I think about it. 3 have not been good. Not since 18-19 has Murray been a legit number 1 starting goalie. His career path went from, top shelf to Cam Ward. Cam Ward won a Stanley Cup with the Carolina Hurricanes in 2000. Was it 5? 6? When did Carolina win their cup? 04? Whatever it was. And Cam Ward kind of lived off that with Jim Rutherford for a decade. His save percentage bubbled at 900 for a decade, or just above 900 for a decade. And he would have spurts of, brilliance, but otherwise Cam Ward was never the stellar starting goalie that everyone thought he would be because he won a Stanley Cup as a rookie. Was it Antiniemi he pushed out of the net in Carolina on that run? I'd have to look it up. You'll forgive me. Dan's mind. I don't have time for those little details. But anyway, Murray went from top shelf to Cam Ward, now to, do we say what, like Jim Carrey? Not Jim Carrey, the actor, but Jim Carrey, the old Washington Capitals goalie who won the Vezina Trophy in his first or second year. The Penguins cracked him in the playoffs, and 2 or 3 years later, he was out of the NHL. Well, here we are, 3 years later. Murray is now on waivers. No, I don't think any team is going to take a flyer on him. I don't care how bad the Buffalo Sabres goaltending situation is. They're not going to pick up a guy who has 2 years after this year at $6.25 million. No and hell no is anybody going to pick that up. That was a brutal contract when he signed it. I mean, there was no show me aspect to that. That was paying him based on past performance and not current performance. However, if Ottawa, rather than put him on waivers, bury him in Belleville, I think their AHL team is in Belleville, and they're willing to pick up half of his salary, then yes, then I see Buffalo diving in. Or if another team has a bad contract, they want to swap. Yes. Look, there's a good goalie somewhere in there. But as you know, goaltending is, like being a major league pitcher is 90% in here. And I think being a goaltender is a lot upstairs as well. And something happened to Murray. He did suffer the loss of his father, which knocked him for a loop, as it would any young man, most likely. And I don't know if that coincided or was a reason for the slope. But it kind of all happened around that same time where his fundamentals went to hell. Remember, the Penguins put him on the shelf for a while and said, look, he just needs to go back and work on fundamentals. And they kept him in practice, and they worked and they worked and they worked. And he came back the second half of 1920. He was actually really good. So that guy is in there somewhere. But that's who else would be interested in a goalie other than Buffalo? Off the top of my, well, you know what? Edmonton does spring to mind. If Edmonton can, I looked. I don't have teams' bad contracts memorized, Wheeler, so I apologize. But Edmonton. But don't forget, Dallas is about to have a third goalie, as Ben Bishop is working out and is about ready to return. So Dallas is going to have Anton Khudobin, Ben Bishop. And who is their young goalie? Hang on, what's his name? I actually had him in my dynasty league. I held on to him and I held on to him. Let's see here. Dallas Stars roster. What is his name? Driving me nuts. They've got Holtby, Khudobin. Oh, they're going to have 4 goalies, not 3. Holtby, Khudobin, Ben Bishop, and Jake Ottinger. Or Ottinger. So they're going to have 4 NHL goalies. So Dallas could probably even trade 2 if they really wanted. That's going to flood the market. That pretty much destroys Matt Murray's value if there was any. A guy who makes $6.25 million on waivers. No, that's. Let's get to Tristan Jarry while we're talking about goaltenders, because I think Tristan Jarry has been instrumental, fundamental, and probably essential to the Penguins' 5-game win streak if they don't have the quality of goaltending that they have received. Look, that Montreal game could have went either way in the first period. Jarry made some really good saves. Jarry made more really good saves against Toronto. If he wasn't on his A+ game against Toronto, what's the score? It's not 2-0. It's 2-2. It's 3-2, and then the teams are fighting and battling. I think the same thing with Winnipeg, right? Winnipeg pushed, and Winnipeg got some really good chances, and Vancouver did. Look, the Penguins were loosey-goosey against Vancouver. The Penguins, if Vancouver had enough fight or energy in them to draw the Penguins into a fire wagon game, the Penguins were ready to just abandon any pretense of the system and just have some pond hockey. They were not that good on Wednesday night. It was Vancouver's lack of heart or lack of fire that really kind of kept the Penguins in control. But they had a goodly number of scoring chances. Yeah, Jarry for Vezina. At the Adrian Dater told me today that the quarter pole does not mean 25%. The quarter pole in horse racing is the last 25%. I think we all in hockey, we use the quarter pole as the first 25%, right? We're in agreement on this. I'm like, no, Adrian. When you get around, to the final turn, that's the 3/4 pole. I don't know. I didn't feel like arguing it, but you know what I'm saying. It's hard to argue Jarry's numbers. I don't know if he's the Vezina candidate because I know Jonathan Quick in LA is bubbling around a .940 save percentage. Jack Campbell has been brilliant in Toronto. He too has been bubbling around that .935, .940, which Jarry is now in that same conversation. So Wheeler, you've got those three guys, just off the top of my head, have by far been the most brilliant goalies this season. And Campbell, Jarry, and Quick do not play on great defensive teams, which I always think elevates a goalie's resume and status in the Vezina voting and MVP voting or whatever. When a guy is putting up gaudy numbers behind a defense that was decimated and sick and using depth defensemen anyway, then you have to tip your cap and maybe weight those numbers just a little bit more. But yeah, it's something to keep an eye out. If Jarry can continue this run, he's not going to get 3 shutouts in 5 games. He's going to level off a little bit. But if he keeps his goals against under 220 and his save percentage above, I'd say 922, 923. So if he stays in that 925 range with a 2-2 goals against, first of all, he'll be in the All-Star game. Second of all, he'll force his way into the Olympic conversation. He won't make the Olympic team in all probability because he hasn't earned it with a long enough body of work. And that's important. When the Olympic cookies are handed out, they look at how deep your glass of milk is too. So while Jarry is deserving, if we're looking at this year, he hasn't forced himself into the conversation of the elite goaltenders just yet. Who else? What was I about to say? Oh, I saw someone's comment here. Hey, Simon, if Rust is out, O'Connor fourth line center instead of Boyle? I don't know. I rather like Brian Boyle as the middle. I don't know if we made a big deal of it, but Drew O'Connor is much happier on the wing. And I don't mean that in terms of performance or whatever. I'm saying personally, he's happier on the wing. He's like, I'm a winger. You kidding me? He didn't quite say it like that. But Drew, I think, is more comfortable on the wing. I don't see a reason to bring him up. I actually think Sam Lafferty gets inserted into the lineup. I would like to see Lafferty with kind of that last chance. You know what I mean? Given his speed, the potential for truculence. That's been something they've been working on Sam Lafferty for a long time with. Consistency and maintaining that energy and that physicality and maintaining all of the good things that he does. Because he'll have that great period or 2 periods or even a couple games, and then he goes Houdini and disappears. So I'd like to see him take that step, and maybe it's just not in the cards, but I don't know. O'Connor is still a bubble guy. He was great, and I thought maybe he took that step, but as he regressed, as his 10-game adrenaline wore off a little bit, he was still better than last year. Don't get me wrong. He was still a legitimate bubble NHL player, but he wasn't that guy who dominated in preseason, and he wasn't that guy who had the level 10 intensity and speed, and and that's a big thing. You look at P.O. Joseph and how he tailed off after that adrenaline wears off, and you have to adjust to that daily grind, and you have to get in that rhythm of playing every other night. Look, the American Hockey League, even and college hockey and juniors, it's a weekend sport. You might have a Tuesday night game, the odd Tuesday or Wednesday game. Primarily, you're playing Friday, Saturday, and or Sunday. And so you have 3-4 days oftentimes to recoup, to rest up, to get set for the next game. The NHL is entirely different in that regard, where you've got a few hours. Get home at 3 a.m. from Winnipeg, get a few hours sleep, and you're back in your next routine. It's a stark departure. It really is, and it's a huge leap. And so you see a lot of these guys, when their adrenaline wears off and the grind, they have to get into the grind, they do regress to the mean. I don't know where Drew O'Connor's mean is, but I don't necessarily think he'd be a better option than Brian Boyle or Sam Lafferty, quite frankly. More Jari for Vezina incoming. Yeah, Emo, we were talking about that a few minutes ago. There's no question that at the 25% mark that Jari is one of 3 goalies who have distinguished themselves this season, with Jack Campbell in Toronto and Jonathan Quick in Los Angeles. Just no question that those 3 guys. And I'm not sure who's going to stick at the elite level and who's going to regress to good. I guess that's part of the 82 game schedule as well. Yeah, Brian Boyle did have the big shot block. And look, as good as the Penguins penalty kill is, with Brian Boyle, it's even better, which is scary. Because here, let me kind of do a little chalk talk for you here. I don't have a chalkboard here. Maybe I should get a chalkboard. Wouldn't that be kind of cool? Let's put the net here. And you've got the circle. Well, it almost looks, I'm almost drawing like Charlie Chaplin. Yeah, I should make the circles bigger, huh? There. And you've got your players, got your player in front of the net. You've got your 2 circles. Let's just rudimentary. There's, rudimentary power play setup. Obviously, teams shifted around. They pull the umbrella. It's not quite that stick figure-ish. But here's what Brian Boyle does. This entire area, because Boyle is so big, Boyle nullifies the point. He literally throws his arms out. He gives the point man a couple feet of space. He doesn't jump out and pressure him. He gives a few feet of space and spreads out and takes this away. So even when a team tries to swing the guy, kind of do the pinwheel in the slot, nothing doing, because Boyle is so big, he just takes that away. He just reaches back and defends it. He turns around and he's on both players. He's on, he's on the point and he's on the slot guy. So I think I think that's incredible. And the Penguins penalty killing being over 90%. Boy, the Islanders power play. Holy, but Jesus, was that terrible. That might be, I mean, as bad as the Penguins have been this season, the Islanders said, hold my beer. I look, a power play boiled down to its barest essentials and its essence is we have more guys than you. And this is where I think coaching sometimes outthinks itself. Whereas coaches try to devise a scheme and a system and, okay, how do we get this guy free or that guy free? To hell with that. If you get the zone entry, you send 2 guys to the net and you blast away. You send 3 guys to the net and you uncork. You get it over to the circle and let him shoot. You get it, you get it somewhere where you can get a shot off and you flood the low zone. That's really all it is. Jacques Demers, when he took over the Minnesota Wild and they were an expansion team, an old friend of mine, Jimmy Dowd, was never a goal scorer. I think he had 9 power play goals that one year. I mean, Jimmy is an awesome guy. In New Jersey, I've kind of lost touch with him, but he was a third, fourth line kind of guy, a real scrapper, fun guy too. Really, really great guy. He had 9 power play goals with the Minnesota Wild. Was it 2001, 2002, whatever it would have been. And they would actually put a player behind the net. And that became how they kind of inverted everything. And they would send 2 guys to the front of the net. And so now you have all of this chaos. And again, we have more guys than you. The Ulysses S. Grant power play strategy. When your lineup is decimated, when you've got 9 players out, when you've got 7 in COVID, all of your top skilled players, muck it up, grind it, get greasy. The Islanders were trying to be pretty, and that just ain't going to happen when you don't have the pretty players. A little bit of that goes for the Penguins, too. I haven't seen the Penguins grease it up either. You want to see that sort of that retrieval, that puck battle. You want to see more of that physicality in the low zone. Because, look, the Penguins are faster. And whatever personnel they put out there, just they have the speed to be a great retrieval team. So just go do it. Just pound the net, flood the net, and see if you can get a loose stick. That's, the Penguins were, 0 for 2 tonight, and they deserved to be 0 for 2. The officials did them a favor a few times, both teams, by not calling penalties and evening things up. Boy, that would be a threat. Knock it off. We're going to put your power play on the ice. Okay, I'm good. What else do you want to talk about? Make sure to get your chats over here, because I've been going for now 33 minutes. I know a lot of you are just joining us. And for those of you who are just hopping on over here, do me a favor, click on that little subscribe button. Also, if you want to give us a thumbs up. The rule is on the Pittsburgh Hockey Now channel, if you ever give us a thumbs down, you got to tell us why. And it has to be, if you're going to give us a thumbs down, I want to know what else we can do. And by the way, obviously, I can't really share screens and put up the graphics here in the home studio. So I hope you'll forgive me for just the show just being me for now. When we start doing the live chats again next week, I will be able to actually start using the graphics again. I'll have the iPad and the whole studio and the microphone all hooked up. So bear with me. Now that COVID is in the rear view mirror, now I get to worry about, is it Omicron? Yeah, I think Omicron is the new mutation in South America. Or is it South Africa? I haven't read the story yet. I think it's South Africa and 8 other countries where the United States has effectively limited travel and banned travel unless you're going home and coming back. Not quite limiting travel, but and this Omicron is, I guess, a bit more vaccine resistant than even Delta has been. Maybe we ought to stop throwing millions of vaccines away here in the United States. And if Alabama doesn't want to get vaccinated, great. They don't get any vaccines. We send them down to these third world countries and these developing countries, get them the shot so that all the mutations, like Delta started, I think, in Brazil or Argentina or down there. Again, poorly vaccinated places create mutations. This isn't, that's not my opinion. That's just how it goes. So let's dive back into the game and what the Penguins did right. I really thought the Penguins, their puck pressure and their puck support has been A1 brilliant. That's the good part. The puck management has been okay, not great. I still think sometimes they're looking for the great play on the rush and not being greasy at the right times. I mean, they do some of it, but with a team that's not naturally greasy, you have to think about it. And you wind up skating away, kicking yourself. Oh, I should have done this, or I should have trucked him there. I think that is part of the Penguins' issue. There was one of those rumor websites that claimed Brian Burke was on Hockey Night in Canada last weekend and said that they would be acquiring a big body. I scoured the internet and I scoured Sportsnet for the video, and it didn't exist. So pull that back if you saw that. And I don't think he actually said it. He may have said something like, sure, we'd love a big body who can be truculent. I think he's said that a dozen times now since the summer. But a big body who is truculent, who can play the Penguins game, those guys don't come cheaply. Those guys are not a dime a dozen, and those guys will cost you. So who would you give up, right? Like you start looking at reward, the risk reward, or the cost factor, all of those sorts of things. Let's see here. Rusigrad. Sorry, man, ma'am. Although not that energetic, are we allowed to say that McGinn is a huge upgrade as far as hockey IQ and skills are concerned, and he costs less, if you remember correctly? He does cost about $750,000 less than Brandon Tanev. Let's not call him a huge upgrade. I heard, you know what? I like Mark Madden. I don't think he likes me very much, but I like Mark. I think he is a brilliant entertainer, and he knows hockey. I was in the car today I had to run to FedEx and to send out some contracts, and so I heard him talking with Colby Armstrong. And I think there's a spreading. I think that's a fashionable take, Rusigrad. I think it's fashionable now to say that McGinn is better than Tanev. The reality is, I think they're very different. What you lose in energy and speed and tenacity, you lose that spark plug factor. But you do gain a player who's a bit more measured. I think I'd like to see the numbers, because it felt like Brandon Tanev had a lot of scoring chances, just wasn't very good at finishing them. I don't necessarily think that McGinn is better than Tanev. I think they're a bit different, and I think obviously the penalty kill, maybe McGinn's a better penalty killer than Brandon Tanev. Maybe that calculating nature, maybe that more controlled game is part of why the Penguins' PK is over 90%. again, we have to let that play out. We saw a couple seasons of Brandon Tanev. We've seen 20 games of Brock McGinn. A good 20 games, 5 goals, nothing to sneeze at. But I would not call him a huge upgrade over Tanev. No, it's my pleasure for mentioning the vaccine. I get in so much trouble with the vaccinated talk. It really is. It's just under my skin because I see this lasting for years, and I just want it to be over. But it's not going to be over. It's not going to end. We're going to deal with alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, xi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, epsilon, phi, chi, psi, and omega. We're going to deal with them all. Can you tell I was a Greek in college? I can still do that. I can still recite a few other things as well before a cheap match burns out. Not bad for 25 years later. So we've talked a bit about the puck support. The Penguins' forecheck, I think, has been different each game. It's been adjusted to their opponent. And that's what I'm an admirer of Mike Sullivan's work. I think that's fair to say. There's no loss of objectivity there. I have no problem calling him out if I think he's wrong on something or he's making an error. But I'm also an admirer of his ability to feel his team, to adjust, to have different game plans, to skate with Toronto like they did last Saturday. It was extraordinary. I mean, you didn't know who was in the blue pants. The Pittsburgh Penguins or the Maple Leafs, because 5-on-5, every Penguin took a man and skated with him for 200 feet. And it just bedeviled Toronto. I haven't seen something like that in a long time. And then against Winnipeg, they were more restrained. They were more positional in their forecheck. And tonight, I think they were a bit wild with it, where they were just going after the Islanders. And they could, because they knew the New York Islanders couldn't beat them. The Islanders could not beat them up the ice. Even if the puck carrier slipped his forechecker or was able to make a good quick pass up, even if that occurred, the Penguins knew they could get back and nullify the New York Islanders. Or even if the Islanders had numbers, say a 4-on-3 or a 3-on-2, the Islanders lineup was not such that it was a great danger. And you can be a little bit more risky when your goalie is a huge safety net like Tristan Jarry is. I like that part of the Penguins game. I really did like their forecheck. They give no quarter and they take no quarter. So that is good. The one thing I'd like to see the Penguins do, I mentioned, getting a bit more greasy, in the dirty areas around the net. Jake Gensel, all 5'10", 180 pounds of him, is doing his damnedest to be a net front agitator. I don't know how long that can last. I don't know how long Jake Gensel's body is meant to put up with taking a beating in that 5-foot war zone around the crease. I tend to think not long. I tend to think Jake should be on like the basketball 3-second rule. Get in, 3 seconds, get out. Count 1, 2, get out. Get back in, get out. So he doesn't take such a murderous pounding, because I don't know that he's built quite for that. Although he's married now, isn't he? Some of you folks who go nuts for the Penguins on Instagram and follow everyone's puppies and kids and all that, did he get maybe some home cooking will fatten him up a little bit and he can absorb a little more cross-checking? Then again, maybe these guys like Aston Reese, no carbs, and these guys like cut out pretzels and they cut out all this stuff from their diet. It's like, man, if I had to do that, and I'm like in high school and I have to like cut out all carbs to be an elite player, I'm looking at thinking, Screw that. Give me pizza. Of course, I had pizza and chocolate milk every day for lunch for 4 years of high school and my first year and a half of college. Not because I had bad taste, it was like that was $3, and I would pocket the rest. I wasn't a simple man, I was just cheap. And you always knew pizza was good. So those are the things the Penguins are doing. I think I'd like to see more offense from the Penguins defense as well. Look, they've won 5 games in a row. Don't mistake this for a dark cloud or negativity. Don't mistake these criticisms or things I want to see to the next level. Because look, this is only November, and the Penguins have a long way to go. They beat. Look, they beat 4 cream puffs, 3.5. Winnipeg's not a cream puff. Winnipeg's pretty good, and Toronto was red hot. So of this 5-game win streak, they've beaten 3 cream puffs and 1 really good team and 1 solid team. Hey, win the games. It's not like a video game where you get to challenge somebody. You win the game in front of you. The Penguins have done that. But what we're not seeing that we saw last year that I thought made the Penguins so dangerous last year was they could open that low to high game. The defensemen were much more effective with their pinches and their puck possession and creating offensive chances. Now, look, Marcus Pettersson is doing worlds better than he ever has in the offensive zone. I thought he scored a goal in the first period tonight. And really, if he didn't get a goal, he should have gotten an assist because somebody should have knocked that loose puck across the line. Having said all of that, when you're relying on Marcus Pettersson and Chad Ruedel to provide offense from the backside, you're going to go hungry. When you're, Mike Matheson is good. John Marino has some offensive instincts, but it's not, their blue line has taken a significant step back from last season. And I think they have to they have to provide more. I want to see more from the blue line to make them a more dangerous offensive team. Now that we're 45 minutes into this quick little live chat, I wanted to end in 30 minutes, but I see people hopping on, so I keep blathering. When do we start to get a little bit concerned about Sidney Crosby? I mean, he has 3 points in 8 games. When do we get a little bit concerned about his lack of production and his play? I don't think yet. I think 8 games is probably too soon. We start getting that 10 and 12 game mark. I think we start looking at Sid like, okay, how healthy are you? Where are you health-wise? Where are you mentally? I think we've got about 3 or 4 more games here before we ask that question legitimately of Sidney Crosby. But it's not too early to maybe write it down and put it in your back pocket. I still think when he breaks out, it's going to be one of those epic 3-week runs where he scores 30 points in 10 games. And everyone's like, oh my God, Sidney Crosby's one of the best ever. I forgot. At least the national Canadian media, right? Let's see. I think they should put Cappy with Crosby. What do you think? Tillman, appreciate the question. I've thought the same thing. I don't see Kasperi Kapanen producing as well with Jeff Carter. I actually thought Carter the last couple of games has also taken a little bit of a step back. I haven't liked Jeff Carter's puck management. I haven't seen all of the good things from Jeff Carter that we have been accustomed to seeing. And Jason Zucker seems to be dominating that line. So yeah, you know what? In Rust's absence, if you put Kapanen up there, yeah. Tillman, I'm all about it. I don't know how the coaches feel. I tend to think they would poo-poo that. I tend to think actually you might see Kasperi Kapanen on the third line before you saw him on the first line. But I'm on board with that. No question about it. So, Have we talked about everything? We talked about Jari. We talked about Matt Murray. I didn't really get into the Olympics. There is increasing worry. I heard it last week from some of our sources. The whispers are, I don't think they're going to go to the Olympics. It's kind of how everyone's saying it. I don't think that's, everyone's kind of like, no one wants to vocalize it. No one wants to be that person out on the limb who says no, because the players so desperately, so passionately want to go to the Olympics to represent their country. At some point, though, this is you and me here. At some point, do we not, as Western civilization, get off of our asses? At some point, do we not take a stand against this communist oppression that is China? From the scientist who blew the whistle about COVID in Wuhan in 2019, who disappeared, to the tennis player Peng, who very credibly accused a well-connected official of sexual assault, rape, disappears. From political dissidents, from Twitter bowing their head and agreeing to censor people on Twitter if you're in China. Screw Twitter for genuflecting to the Communist Party. Same with Facebook. Oh, okay, if you let us into your country, we'll let you control our company and we'll let you dictate the terms of speech. I don't have any patience or tolerance for that. But I think more importantly, we go nuts over a bad tweet in the Western world. And here is a country that is legitimately killing and disappearing people and jailing people over a political opinion. And that opinion is, I want to be free. I want my self-determination. I want my human rights. And they get jailed over that. So first of all, screw the IOC as well for giving China the games. That to me is, it's proof that you can buy the IOC. Two, as we find out more and more about the waning efficacy of the vaccines, they're still essential. They're still I know I'm still under the camp that they damn well should be mandatory. But as we find out, that after 6-8 months, that Delta can slip through, well, we're going to see a lot more of the NHL players getting COVID because they're on top of each other. And so one person brings it in to the locker room, you're going to see a team with 7 players out, like the New York Islanders. The booster shots, I think, are critical. I'm not sure if I should get one or not, having just recovered. I have to do a bit more. I have to ask a few people. And by the way, I received some great responses to the COVID story I wrote last week. One of the people, someone's flagged me down at PPG and kind of complimented and said they actually read my article, called UPMC's helpline, and said, "Hey, did you read the article about, on Pittsburgh Hockey Now?" And the helpline said yes. And they discussed it, and the helpline said, "Okay, yes, you'll want to get the booster shot, and in 6 months you may have to, watch yourself for 8 months, maybe even have to get another booster shot." It was kind of cool that I was being discussed at that level. But in terms of hockey, in terms of the Olympics, it's going to be a huge problem. Look, we're looking at the Omicron mutation. It's going to be there at the Olympics. It's going to be there. And how risky is the NHL going to be with this? I tend to think the human rights violations are so egregious in China that it only exacerbates and magnifies the COVID issue. And I would actually, if they want to just each team wants to play, they want to play in Los Angeles or Grand Forks, North Dakota, knock yourselves out. Let's have the Olympic tournament up there. Let's go for it. But to go to China surrounded by iffy, I mean, look, we know how China does things, right? China does not adhere to letters of the law. They cut corners to get, it's more important to get it done than it is to get it done right. And so who knows what, who knows what we're going to face if we go to the Olympics. I certainly won't be going over to cover. That's for damn sure. I have zero desire to go over to China. And I've always wanted to go to China to visit and to be a tourist. But yeah, no and hell no right now. Power play, Tillman wants to talk about. Okay, this is the last call for questions, 55 minutes in. I like to knock it off at least an hour, before an hour. The Penguins power play, Tillman, I think the Penguins breakouts are too spotty and inconsistent. I think as Chris Letang kind of gets to this point in his career, he's not faster than the penalty killers, at least demonstrably so, like he used to. I'm not saying he's lost a step. I'm saying the penalty killers have gained a step. And I haven't seen great Penguins breakouts and zone entries on the power play. Because look, there's not, you don't have Evgeny Malkin. And Malkin, while he's not a great speedster, was so deft with the stick that he could just lay waste to two penalty killers like that and have two guys trapped behind him. And now the Penguins are going. Now they're going on the rush. And now they're creating chances with speed into the zone. And I think this season, their best chances and their best power plays have been when they tried to create and when they tried to play on the rush, not when they tried to set up and go knock heads at the net. So I think I'd like to see them incorporate a bit more of that rush mentality. I'd like to see them figure it out, whether it's putting Kapanen on power play one or whether it's, Jason Zucker, whatever it is. They have to get Chris Letang help coming through the neutral zone. That's not Sidney Crosby's forte. That's not his game. And so, and I think until that is solved, then the greasy part is the secondary issue we have to discuss. But if they can get chances on the rush, then that opens up the ability to be a bit more greasy by the net because now things are scrambled. Now there's not a defenseman waiting to hammer you. Now he has to react to you and chase you to the net, which gives you that extra half second to have your stick free for a rebound or have it down on the ice for a deflection, a tap in, a pass, a shot, whatever it might be. So that's what I think of the power play. I don't necessarily think their structure, whether it's an umbrella or they go to more of the wings. I don't think that's the important issue. So I see more people coming on. Maybe I should have done this later. I have to get back to writing. I appreciate you all hopping on. Do me a favor, like and subscribe before you leave. Always. And I did mention, DM me for that coupon code to be a PHN Plus member. I'll give you the $10 off in honor of Black Friday. My competition is doing a $1 sale. What does that tell you? I'm just saying. They're $1. I on sale am $20, and I'm worth every penny. All right, kids. Have a good night. Have a good weekend. We'll talk to you tomorrow from the arena. I'm Dan Kingerski of Pittsburgh Hockey Now. Take care.